more instance, I just want to go through a couple of these questions that there were some issues on it. So anyways, I want to go through a couple of them. First of all, just number 2, when you go through and you square these, anytime I have a square root, okay, it's a root of 2, to get rid of it, I'm going to square it, which falls off, it'd just be 2x plus 5 equals 3x minus 1. And then we can solve from there. Subtract 2x, subtract 2x, so 5 equals 1x minus 1. Then add 1 to it, and so 6 equals x. Check it. Okay, so 2 times 6 is 12. 12 plus 5 is 17, so this would be the square root of 17. Okay, 3 times 6 is 18. 18 minus 1 is 17. So check it. It does work. If you have it, then go ahead and do that. But always check your answers in the end. Okay, so if you come through on the question number 3, so I'm going to go through 3. So we want to isolate the radical. There it's by itself, so we're going to square this side. We're also going to square this side. So when I square, it's just x plus 4. On this side, I need to square the 3. So 3 squared is 9. And the square root of x squared is just x. And then we would subtract the x. So you have 8x equals 4, then divide by 8, and 1/2 equals x. When you come to number 5, when you go through it, we're going to go through the same idea of it. Okay, so on number 5, same idea is the only difference is instead of using a square root, now we're using a cube root. So we're going to cube this side, and we're going to cube this side. So if I cube this side, it's just 7x plus 5. I need to cube this 3 as well. So 3 to the 3rd power is 27. And then the cube root of x, the cube root of x to the 3rd power would just be x. And then we can go ahead and solve. So we'd subtract 7x, 20x equals 5, then divide by 20. And so x equals 1/4. So I want to go through. Now number 6, again, check these values to to make sure they work out. This one, number 6, is another one that students had issues with. When you come through here, you square this side, you square that side. So that just gives you negative 14x plus 2. Now x minus 3 to the 2nd power is x minus 3 times x minus 3. So then you would go ahead and you'd multiply this. Okay, and when you do that, you're going to get x squared minus 6x plus 9. Okay, then I go ahead and get the x's on the same side. So I add 14x, I subtract 2, and so I get 0 equals x squared plus 8x plus 7. And so I factor it. What multiplies a 7 and adds to 8 would be 1 and 7. So I'm going to put it here. So we can factor that to this. So x squared plus 7x plus 8x plus 7. And we factored it. What multiplies a 7 and adds to 8 was 1 and 7. Then we set each factor equal to 0. And so we get x is equal to negative 7, and x equals negative 1. Now, here's the issue. If you go and actually plug in negative 7, okay? So if I plug in negative 7, so negative 7 times negative 14 is 98. 98 plus 2 is 100. So if I plug it in, I get the square root of 100 equals negative 7 minus 3. So that would be 10 equals negative 10. Okay, that can't be. That's not correct. Then I'd also plug in negative 1. So negative 1 times negative 14 would be 14 plus 2, which is the square root of 16, equals negative 1 minus 3, which is negative 4. Square root of 16 is 4. So again, this doesn't work out. 4 equals negative 4. And actually, number 6 is no solution because both of these, they look like solutions. They look like they should work. But when I plug them in, I get this negative, which it shouldn't be. And so that's what you'd be looking at if you went through those. The last one, that I wanted to look at, or actually the two that I wanted to look at, was on number 10, we'll do 10 and 11, the last two. When you go through, we always want to isolate my radical. So I want to look at 9, 10, and 11 real quick. We will always want to get this by itself. So if I do it, there's a couple ways you could do it. Actually, a couple of different ways. So you could, on this one, just make sure, I always say get this by itself, so that means I would get rid of the 4 first. So I'd have x minus 12 to the 1/3 power equals negative 4. And then we raise it to the 3rd power, we raise that to the 3rd power. And then you could go from there. So those would cancel, you just have x minus 12 equals negative 64. Come here, we want to isolate our radical, our square root. So I'm going to subtract the 3. So I equal 6 square root of x minus 4, and then we square each side. And you can go through and solve this one. Equals 36, or should be 4, there we go. And then you could go through and solve. This one is the one I want to go through, so we go ahead and we square each side. So that gives me 2x minus 7 equals 4x squared. So we want to get everything to the x squared side. So we subtract the 2x. We add the 7. So those cancel. It gives me 0 equals 4x squared minus 2x plus 7. So then again, I try to factor this. So what 4 times 7 is 28. And what multiplies to 28 adds to negative 7. So if I look at this, we have 1 and 28, we have 2 and 14, 3 doesn't work, 4 and 7. Okay, what multiplies a positive 28, so they're either both negative, so nothing's going to factor, so this would be no solution for this one. So I just want to go through those. Our goal all the time is isolate the absolute, isolate our radical, or if it's this exponential form, isolate it first, and then take the appropriate power. So either raise it to the 2nd power or the 3rd power.